Police lights were painting my porch like a low-budget disco. The woman in the pink blazer was jabbing a finger toward my face and yelling, "Get out, or you're going to jail." And the sergeant thumbed my deed, radioed dispatch, then looked up and said, "Ma'am, this property isn't in your HOA." Her smile died right there. Mine didn't show up either. Not yet, because even when the truth lands clean, you can feel the tremor of what's coming next. I wish I could tell you it ended on that porch, I really do. But some people hear a boundary and take it as a dare. I'm Aaron Cole. 35. I write code for a living and build tables out of scrap walnut when I need to remember what solid feels like 3 days after closing. I was still stepping around boxes at 520 Willow Bend Drive. My realtor had promised me the unicorn, sidewalks and friendly dogs, but no HOA on the parcel. And that cottonwood in the backyard threw shade like a blessing, while my coffee steamed, and I debated where the couch should live. At 7:58 a.m., the door shook under a fist that sounded like it wanted to meet my bones. I cracked it. She pushed past like she owned the hinges. Pink blazer, white sneakers, clipboard, heavy with laminated rules. And without a hello, she snapped, "You're not approved. You've got 5 minutes to explain why you're trespassing in my community." I set my mug down, asked who she was. She smiled in that way. People smile when they think your question proves their case, and said, "I'm Linda Barrett, president of Maple Crest HOA. Every house on Willow Bend goes through me. Every color, every car, every blade of grass." I pulled up the parcel map I'd saved, county overlay clear as day, and showed her the line where Maple Crest stops, and my lot begins a 61-foot gap, as obvious as the driveway under our feet. And I said, "I am not yours." She slapped her palm on my wall, left a scuff, knocked my laptop sideways. Called the police, told the dispatcher I was an illegal occupant, and a threat. Yeah, that happened. And when Sergeant Morales arrived, he separated us, took my deed and survey, radioed the parcel, and got the answer that should have ended everything. Instead, Linda's eyes went hard like glass under snow, and she said, "Those maps are wrong. People keep moving the lines. I've been protecting this neighborhood for 20 years. The sergeant told her to step off my porch or face her own trouble." She marched away without looking for the step and nearly missed it for a heartbeat. I felt sorry, then I breathed and let it pass. The next morning, my inbox looked like a parade had crashed into a printer subject, and it's from Maple Crest, president, official, stacking up like bricks. Notice of violation. Final warning, legal action imminent. And the attachments were photos taken at all hours. My trash cans at 6:02 a.m., which was apparently 58 minutes early. My car 2 inches off the approved angle, the free local paper labeled visual clutter, and by the 7th email, I had a folder by the 12th, I had a log, and around 22 my phone rang with an unknown number that somehow felt familiar. Mr. Cole, Officer Jordan Pierce, with community policing. He said, "We've got multiple complaints of overnight surveillance on Willow Bend. Not against you, about you. 3 neighbors reported Ms. Barrett in a lawn chair at 3 a.m. With binoculars, do not engage, keep. Recording, will file harassment." That afternoon, a man I'd seen walking a golden retriever stopped at my driveway like we were back in a town where people still borrow sugar. "I'm Ethan from 2 doors down," he said. "You're number 14. And when I asked 14, "What?" he rubbed the dog's ear and said, "Families." She went after, who weren't even in Maple Crest. Most left. You're the first who had the paperwork ready when the cops showed up. If you stay, you help all of us. But she won't back off. She never does. That night under the streetlight, my camera caught her rolling a surveyor's measuring wheel from sidewalk to fence, counting the same line again and again. 61 feet, 61, 61, whispering it like a number could be a prayer. And I didn't yell or step outside. I wrote it down because documenting is sometimes the only armor that fits. 2 mornings later, the knock was softer, but heavier. 6 people on my porch with a beat-up banker's box and the same last name on their mail. Clark. A woman my age said, "I'm Meg and Linda's niece. We need to talk," so I made coffee because trouble deserves a coaster, and they told me they were not aboard at all. Just cousins. And in laws she had appointed to made-up offices so she could waive an officer list when she wanted to sound official. Then they opened that box like it might bite and set out letters high. Notices, a little ledger, and printed maps that made the next part plain. She was mailing fines to addresses outside the recorded boundary. She had been for years, and Megan said after her dad died, she got worse. He was the real president. Once a decent one, but she started chasing at anything that looked like a rule or a memory. And then she said the line that stuck under my ribs. She says the creek is the real line. Pine Creek. It got diverted in the late 80s, and the boundary moved with it. She never did. There's a point where being nice becomes irresponsible. I crossed it that day and made an appointment with a lawyer named Ralph Henderson. Stripy tie, cheerful bulldog face, who listened without interrupting. Then slid a drawer open and put down a neat stack of files. Every tab labeled Barrett, and he had call logs rejected. Suit's letters. A years-old puff piece about Maple Crest's vigilant leader, back when vigilant still sounded like a compliment. And he said most people sell and run. But if you stay, we set a precedent. We'll file for a restraining order and a counterclaim. We'll subpoena emails. We'll pull every map from the county. And if Pine Creek moved, we will find the amendment. And if her father signed it, we will put that signature on a screen. And then he gave me the warning. I already felt in my bones when people like this lose control. They don't surrender. They escalate. And I said, so do I. And meant it. Linda escalated with a camera crew Channel 9 parked crooked along my curb cables like snakes across the grass. A reporter in a navy blazer doing that serious face, while Linda unfurled a foam board with red string and arrows and said developers stole a waterway. County conspiracies. This man has the real maps. He stole them. And I stood at my fence and let the microphone record nothing, because silence can be heavier than a speech. And within a day, 2 neighbors who had been quiet sent sworn statements to Ralph, which felt like a door unlatched somewhere I couldn't see. The record search took 3 business days. Flat Pine Creek diverted in 1987. Maple Crest boundary amended and recorded that summer. And there it was on microfilm and in print, with a signature so familiar I could picture the pen. Harold Barrett, Linda's father. And you didn't need a law degree to read it. You needed eyes and a ruler, so. Ralph prepped motions. Officer Pierce called with a court date for a combined hearing. And I finally slept a real sleep that felt like steady ground. The night before court, my doorbell cam lit up again. She stood in the middle of my yard in slippers, and that pink blazer speaking to the air like the lawn held a ghost. "I'm trying," she whispered, once drawing a map, only she could see from the cottonwood to where the creek used to sing. 61 feet. You told me to remember, and I watched that clip 3 times with something human and awful climbing my throat. Then I plugged in the camera so the battery wouldn't die and went to bed. Because feeling sorry doesn't mean letting someone keep hurting you. Boundaries exist for a reason. That's the whole fight, you know what I mean. Court felt smaller than TV. Makes it look scuffed pews. A clock that ticked too loud. A buzzing light. That made everyone squint, and the gallery filled with former neighbors and current ones, and people who came to watch the pink blazer story. End or begin again. And Linda walked in without the armor-gray dress. Cardigan, a psychiatrist at her elbow, and the air shifted. Because anger wants a villain with a cape, not a person with tired eyes. We went first. Ralph put the 1987 amendment on the projector, clear language, clear line. Then the audio of Sergeant Morales saying the words that should have been enough. This property isn't in your HOA, and witnesses told the room how it had felt. A veteran whose tomato barrels drew 12 police calls. A mom whose daughter wrote sorry across a sidewalk rainbow after a stranger yelled that children's chalk lowers property values. A bookkeeper who warned Linda about mailing fines outside the boundary and kept copies when those addresses later got below market purchase offers. And the judge asked where the offers came from, and the bookkeeper didn't know. But the pattern sat there like a stain you can finally see in daylight. Linda stood with Dr. Reed's hand a quiet weight on her arm and said, "I promised my father I would keep the standards. When they diverted the creek, the lines in my head didn't move. I measured them so I could remember." And she looked at me with apology and fear and something like relief. And the judge said, "Intent matters for what we do next, not for whether harm happened then." Reed explained delusional disorder and grief welded to identity, and said the sentence I keep turning over in my mind: when someone's purpose is built on being the one who says no, any boundary can become a wall. Ralph clicked the projector one last time and put up the minutes. Harold Barrett's name in ink beneath language that ends the HOA at the new channel, and said with no heat in it, "At all, your father drew this line, he signed it. The law ends where he put his pen down." Judge Caroline Webb set her glasses aside, folded her hands, and brought the plain an immediate injunction. No contact, no authority beyond recorded boundaries at 5 years. Supervised probation with mandatory treatment. 1,200 hours of community service on homeowner education. About HOA limits, a permanent ban from any HOA office. A restitution fund administered by a special master for those harmed, and a referral to the county to review misleading fines. Then the bailiff unclipped a temporary badge from Linda's lanyard, and the gavel cracked once like a door closing. Nobody cheered. Nobody wanted a parade. I picked up my folder and felt a quiet settle that wasn't joy. More like oxygen, like a neighborhood finally remembering how to breathe through its nose. And when I turned, I caught Linda looking at me. She mouthed, "I'm sorry." DeReed guided her toward a side door, and the hinge edge met the frame with the softest click. "So here's where you come in. Because I know you will argue in the comments, and honestly, I want to hear it. Was justice served? Or did we go soft on someone who hurt a lot of people for a long time? Is compassion just consequence in a nicer suit? Where do you draw the line between community standards and control? When the person holding the pen gets their identity from drawing the line. And if you've ever had an HOA tell you your life doesn't fit inside their box. What did you do? Did you move? Did you fight? Would you have stayed? If you knew the line ended 61 feet before your lawn started. If this hit home. Tell me your story. Below, tell me the most ridiculous violation you've seen. Tell me where you think the sentence should land, and if you believe boundaries matter, but people matter more. Tap like so this reaches someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more real stories about power, pushback, And that thin place where no becomes control, and where a porch finally goes quiet enough that a cottonwood can just be a tree.